Hey BookTube, here's my August wrap-up.
I got my ticket for the long way round.
I know I'm running a little late on this August wrap-up, but I'm late for everything, so sorry. I read a lot of books in August. Actually, I read 20 books, and I was kind of on a contemporary romance, summer beach read, social issue sort of kick, I guess. I'm just going to rattle off what these books are and let you know what they were. I read a couple of books in hardback, some ebooks, and mostly audiobooks. So I will flash the audiobooks right up here as I tell you what they were and what I thought of them. The first hardback I read was Survive by Alex Morel. This is the story of Jane, who wants to commit suicide. She laughs about how suicide runs in her family. Her grandparents committed suicide, her dad committed suicide, and so she kind of jokes about how it's genetic, and she really does want to kill herself, but you're never really sure exactly why, if she really hates her life that much. Well, anyway, she's been in this rehab facility in Boise, Idaho, and it's around Christmas time, and so she gets a pass to go back and see her mother, and she has resolved that on the plane, she's going to kill herself. She's going to go in the bathroom, and she's going to kill herself. So she gets ready to do that, and while she's in the bathroom on the plane crashes. And there's been a guy sitting next to her named Paul, and it turns out he has survived the crash, and so has she. And they're in the freezing cold snow on top of this mountain, and they're the only two survivors of the crash, and now they've got to get down off this mountain back to civilization without getting frozen to death or killed by some wild animal or, other means. Well, this really is not a book about survival. If that's kind of story that you're looking for, this is not your book. Because it was less about that and more about how you find things to live for and what's worth living for in your life. And Jane was a really interesting character. So I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, really liked it, and I did a review on it. And so I will link that below. Second book I read in hardback was The Archived by Victoria Schwab. This, I had been looking forward to this, and it was everything I hoped it would be. It's really more of a ghost story than anything else. It's about Mackenzie, and she's got a couple of things going on in her life, but she is just like her grandfather, and he was a keeper. And keepers patrol the corridor that runs between the archive and the real world. So you got a supernatural thing going on there. And the archive is kind of like a big library where people are kept, like, shelved after they die. It looks like their body, but it's the sum total of who you are gets shelved in this archive. And so sometimes souls will get out and escape, and they'll get into this corridor. And so Mackenzie's job to make sure that they don't get out before they get out into the real world, because then it's somebody else's problem. So there's a big adventure, and it's really good, and I'm looking forward to the next couple of books in this series. And I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, now on to my ebooks that I read. So the first one was a novella by Patrick Ness called Snowscape. It's part of the Chaos Walking series. It's like Chaos Walking 3.5, I think. And it's just a little side story about Wilf, who was one of the beloved characters, and Lee, who got blinded in one of the wars. And they kind of go up north and find a little society of spackle that live there, and they have an adventure. And the best part is the end of the story. And Snowscape, I gave 5 out of 5 stars. I love Patrick Ness. I do. I just love him. I think he's an incredible writer. So then I read Stitch by Samantha Durante, and that I had high hopes for, and that was interesting. It kind of went like the Maze Runner went for me. It's like you have this whole story going along, and then it's not at all what you thought it was. And some people like the beginning, some people like the end, but pretty much everybody agrees that it doesn't really mesh. Stitch would make an amazing graphic novel, but for me, the story just didn't quite jive. It's kind of a ghost story in the beginning, and then it goes into a dystopia, and it's, yeah, just what you'd imagine. It's worth reading, and it's the first in a series, so I think it's going to get better, but it was just kind of weird. I gave that 3 out of 5 stars, and looking forward actually to the sequels for that. Then I read Angel Evolution by David Estes, and I gave that 3 out of 5 stars. That's the first in the Evolution trilogy, And it was really, I think, the first book that he wrote. And it's a good story. And it's a good first novel. Really liked that. I'm going to continue on with that series. Then I read Origin by Jennifer Armentrout, and that is the 4th book in the Lux series, and it had just come out, actually it just came out like 2 weeks ago, and I loved it. It's the continuing story of Katie and Damon, and yeah, just more adventures. I have to say, she's really good at taking each installment of the series and making it a little bit different, and yet the characters are the same, but they've still grown a little bit and gotten a little bit older, more mature, that sort of thing. Rachel Vincent is also really good at that. And I rated that 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Pivot Point by Casey West. Really great book. I didn't expect for this to be that good. I really didn't. It's such an inventive premise. It's about a girl who is a superhero. Her name is Abbi. She lives in a compound of superheroes that is unbeknownst to the real world. And her parents are getting divorced, and so her dad's going to go live in the real world, and her mom is going to stay in the compound with the special people. And Abbi has an ability to be a searcher. She can look at a situation and see into the future what's going to happen if she makes this choice or if she makes this choice. So, here we have the choice, am I going to live with mom or dad? So she follows those 2 choices, and the book flips chapter to chapter between I'm living with mom and I'm living with dad. And, just great story and great ending, sets it up for the rest of the series. I think this is the first in what's going to be 3 books. Really, really good. I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. And then the last 2 books that I read that were ebooks were The Coincidence of Callie and Kayden and The Redemption of Callie and Kayden. And I gave both of those 4 out of 5 stars. This follows the story of, obviously, Callie and Kayden, and they are college kids and they have issues. Probably that's about all I need to tell you, but they are big, bad issues. Some bad stuff has happened and now they've got to deal with it, and they find each other, and can their romance survive? And yeah. I think it's young adult. Like I say, I don't think it's new adult. I can't remember, but definitely check out that genre before you dive in if you are a younger person and you don't know, because it could be a little too much. So yeah. Anyway, good story. I gave that 4 out of 5 stars because it dealt so well with those social issues. Okay, on to the audiobooks. First audiobook number 1 was The Summer I Turned Pretty. Actually, I have a copy of this. This is by Jenny Han. It was narrated by Jessica Almasy, and 3 stars. I thought it was a cute little beach read, but it didn't really have the depth of the other contemporaries that I have been reading in August, so it just didn't really have enough oomph to it. It's about a group of kids who always go every summer to a house at the beach, and their relationships with each other. The girl, her name is Belly. She's always been in love with one of the brothers. There are 2 brothers. The other brother kind of likes her. She has a brother, and then she has a best friend. And yeah, all drama. So 3 stars. Not really terribly impressed. Then I read the entire Seabreeze series, or the entire Seabreeze series up to this point, by Abbi Glines. Those were all narrated by Shayna Thibodeau and Kirby Hayborn. I'm becoming kind of a Kirby Hayborn fan. I don't think he's quite Dan Bittner, but he's definitely way up there in my choice of male narrators. Yeah, I like him. Anyway, those books are Breathe, Because of Low, While It Lasts, Just for Now, and there are more to come. In fact, I think one comes out later this year. And those are all, they all take place in Seabreeze, Alabama. I did a review on these books, so I will link it below. And yeah, just beach read. What can I say? Contemporary, everybody's in love with everybody else, and drama. They're all individually pretty good. So I rated those 4 out of 5 stars just for entertainment value alone. They were just really fun. Also by Abbi Glines, I read The Vincent Boys and The Vincent Brothers. That's a duology about, again, the same characters. Beach read, drama. Really like Abbi Glines, actually. I've she's my Sarah Dessen. Then I read Hopeless and Losing Hope by Colleen Hoover. Yet another contemporary couple of novels. This was kind of like Walking Disaster and Beautiful Disaster in that one's from the girl's perspective and the next book is from the guy's perspective. And very, very good, well-written books dealing with some social issues. And of course, you know, you've got the whole romance thing going on too. Those were narrated by Angela Goethals for Hopeless, and then Kirby Hayborn did Losing Hope. Again, I really like him. I rated those 4 out of 5 stars, and I was very impressed with Colleen Hoover's writing and just the handling of those issues. And then I read Ruby Red, and that's by Kerstin Gier. It is narrated by Marissa Kalin. And I had high hopes for that one. It didn't really meet my expectations. And I'm not sure why it didn't measure up for me. I think it may have just been the mood I was in. I am going to read the sequel, which is Sapphire Blue, and then there's a third one that has to do with emeralds. But it's about time travel. It's very, very complicated and involved. And then, of course, you throw the time travel in. And anyway, it was a pretty good read. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was good enough to keep going with the series. I'm hoping that either I'm in a better mood or it gets better, one of the two. Then I read The Program by Suzanne Young. It's narrated by Joy Osmonsky. And I really liked that. That's kind of a dystopian set in the future where because of the generation who has taken antidepressants, the long-term effects of those antidepressant drugs are now taking effect with the younger population, and the kids are all committing suicide at these exponential rates. So because of this epidemic of suicide, there's this thing called The Program, which is an experimental program for kids who are at risk of committing suicide. But the problem is that these kids can't show any negative emotion or about anything because they'll get targeted and literally pulled out by men in white coats to go be sent to this program. And the program basically erases their memories and kind of reboots them so that they no longer want to commit suicide. I think it's going to be a really good series. Strikes me as kind of a series similar to Article 5. So I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Darkfever, which is the first in the Fever series by Karen Marie Moning. It is narrated by Joyce Dean, and it is the story of Mackenzie who goes to Ireland to check out her sister's murder, and she runs into the Fae world of strange people and things that are bad. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I wasn't that impressed with Joyce Dean as a narrator, so I will probably continue with that series in print. And I'll probably do it slowly, just kind of revisit that world from time to time. Then I read A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, narrated by Jason Isaacs. And I loved this. I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It's the story of Connor, whose mother is dying of cancer, and the way that he's dealing with this. And he does it by talking to a monster, and the monster tells him stories. And if you can get this book in print, then the illustrations are amazing. Then I read The Sea of Tranquility by Katja Millay. It is narrated from 2 points of view by Kirby Hayborn and by Candace Thaxton. And it is another new adult contemporary. I think it's new adult. It may be young adult. And actually, I would rate it more young adult. It's the story of Nastya and Josh. Nastya is a former piano prodigy, and really bad thing happens to her. So she starts over in a new town, living with her aunt, new high school, new identity, really. And then Josh, he's also a senior in high school, and he has essentially lost everybody. Mom and sister were killed in a car accident. Dad dropped dead of a heart attack. The grandfather he's been living with is now going to hospice because he's got cancer and he's dying. And so Josh is alone. So he meets Nastya, and it is the story of the way they kind of work out their issues. And I have to say, it's very well done. It's very realistic. 5 out of 5 stars, and I did do a review on The Sea of Tranquility. I will link that below. I also did one on Hopeless, but that was before I had read Losing Hope, and I will link that below. So that's my August wrap-up. If you've read any of those books, I'd love to hear what you think. So leave me a comment and definitely let me know. And I will have an August TBR up pretty soon. I have a feeling that I'm going to shift genres and go kind of time travel, because I'm kind of liking the whole time travel thing. So anyway, until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
When I'm gone, when I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my hair, you're gonna miss me everywhere. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.